You can't change someone's citizenship. You can't change someone's nationality. That's something that is
a lot easier than gender.
And then this is how I would say this is the same situation. Just because this person has done a heinous crime doesn't mean they're no longer a woman.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to react to this panel discussion on Piers Morgan Uncensored. They've invited Ava, who is a feminist, and I think it's pretty interesting to see how feminists approach the whole idea of males in women's spaces, of biological males who identify as women, infringing upon women's sports, being in women's spaces, basically being treated as if they are women. Feminists who go by the mantra, trans women are women. I find it very interesting that these are women who claim to advocate for other women. Ava has been accused of disliking men in general, has been accused of being unsympathetic towards men, especially when we talk about males unaliving themselves, being at a higher rate. She was once accused of being unsympathetic towards that sort of discussion.
I think that it feeds into the culture a little bit, this Minister for Men argument. In my mind, I think there should be a Minister for Mental Health, which should be all-encompassing. I mean, you've got something like 7 million children waiting for prescriptions for mental health at the moment. It's a crisis that's endemic throughout the country, not specific to men. And I think, a lot of ministers kind of bandy this about to sort of, I'm sorry, but make an enemy out of women. I think, not you, and I don't think your book is. I
don't accept that. I don't think it is to make an enemy. If we looked at during COVID, men were literally more likely to die from COVID. And I don't really want to cast myself as a meninist or one of these guys from the manosphere, because that's not who I am. But I do find it interesting that sometimes the arguments tend to throw it back.
But who was doing all the work during COVID? A lot of the time, if you looked into people's households, it was the women who were taking on the laundry, the school care, all of that.
I'm not disputing any of that. What I'm saying that there are specific issues that men face that might warrant specific attention. I mean, literally, the biggest killer of men under 50 is suicide. That is an arresting statistic, and if that doesn't warrant specific attention, mental health is an umbrella issue.
I have to say that is also because women are unsuccessful. That is a lot of feeds into that statistic.
But it feels like, it just doesn't feel like you've got any space for this idea that men might have unique challenges that face them. And the problem is, even as I'm saying this, in my mind, it's like I've got out the violin, and I don't want to be.
Read the book.
I don't want to be this guy, because that's part of the problem. Is because you're encouraged at one level, is men need to talk about their problems more, and then the moment you do it, you're like, all right, but not quite so often and not quite so loud.
Men were that alpha, then they wouldn't be that bothered by this. Doesn't really help us when it comes to boys growing up. And that is one of my worries, that for teenage boys now, they are so terrified of the consequences of putting a foot out of line. It's hard enough being a young teenager, working out how things are, working out how to do dating and all of that, without the terror that if you touch in the wrong place at the wrong time, you may find that your whole life is destroyed.
And
there is far too much. Well, I
like that.
As a mother of a teenage boy, I don't like that terror.
I do.
Delicious thing I've ever heard.
That is awful.
I think that men should be frightened.
I think
to
you
touch
feel
women in a way
differently
that
if you
they're
were
not comfortable with.
So I find it interesting that when a man decides he wants to identify as a woman, don a dress, put on some makeup, a wig maybe, she's all for it. And all of a sudden, she's sympathetic towards that man's cause. She's sympathetic towards that male infringing upon women's spaces, women-only spaces. And she even thinks that biological male should be classed as a woman on paper. Officially and legally should be regarded as a woman, to the point where when that person goes out and commits a crime, they are put into a prison that is female only. Even if the crime they've been accused of, or convicted of, shall I say, is violating women. Because that's what happens when you actually go by the mantra, trans women are women. That means on paper, officially, legally, they are classed as a woman. They are put into women's spaces, women's prisons. They say she committed this crime. She impregnated an inmate. This is the language I've seen written in news articles that are supposed to be factual. And when we talk about statistics, records, historical facts, when we class a male as a female because of identity, that skews the numbers. That attributes yet another crime to a woman. That attributes more assaults, more RAPEs to women. And feminists like Ava don't seem to have a problem with that.
Well, let's move on to another topic, as Tara's suggested. Another pretty incendiary one, actually. This is about a transgender murderer called Scarlet Blake, who dissected a cat, placed its body in a blender just months before she then stalked a male victim and killed him in cold blood. Now, it was reported by many media sites this was a woman murderer, and that prompted J.K. Rowling, who's been very vocal about this whole transgender activism issue, to tweet, "I'm so sick of this bleep," she said to her 14 million followers on X. "This is not a woman. These are hashtag not our crimes." And as always, she got a barrel load of abuse back from the trans community. So let me start with you, Ava, on this. As a woman, do you not have a real problem with statistics now being artificially, and I would argue, as J.K. Rowling has, completely disingenuously affected against women? So the murder rate will look like more women are committing horrific murder crimes than historically they've been doing, because transgender killers now get categorized as women.
I find the argument confusing because I don't care if that murderer identified as a woman or is a woman. I care that she was a murderer. I mean, Rose West was a biologically born woman. I don't identify with her.
But do you think that Scarlet Blake is a woman who committed that murder?
Well, she said that she is a woman, and I don't really think.
And that's enough for you?
But it doesn't do anything for me. I don't really care.
It literally will change the statistic.
Wow. Wow. She says that she's a woman, so she's a woman. You're still honouring that, using the pronouns that this horrific murderer wants you to use, or to stand by your ideology. You're still giving that person that respect. You don't care, but you care enough to still refer to this person as a she. You care enough to still ensure that you don't misgender the person. Why is that your concern? Why is that your priority? To still ensure that you go along with this, that you play along with this, when we're talking about somebody who doesn't deserve your respect. They tortured an animal and they murdered someone. But yet you're still concerned about not misgendering them. It's absolutely ridiculous. And apparently it's okay for their crime to be attributed towards women. So when we talk about statistics and the number of essays that are attributed to men and the number of essays that are attributed to women, slowly but surely, we're going to see more attributed to women, because we've seen men who have been convicted of rape, allowed into women's prisons, and continue to commit those crimes while in the prison. They have used identity to gain access to women. Numbers matter, facts matter. Whether the person was male or female actually matters, because it's just simply another fact. Because it means that the information we receive is accurate. If we're going to advocate for women, we need the numbers that show that women are more likely to be the ones who are assaulted, who are victims of SA. We need that to be accurate. We don't need more crimes attributed to women. If there's statistics that say that women are more likely to be murdered, we need those numbers to be accurate. Especially as a feminist who love to talk about statistics about how violent men are, how dangerous men are. When it suits you, you want to use those statistics. But when you want to stand by your ideology, apparently it doesn't matter whether those statistics are accurate or not, whether those crimes are attributed to women or not, if the person identifies as a woman. Absolute insanity.
I think it does
but
matter.
She was a murderer.
No, but I think it does matter, because it matters in how we view sort of public policy and the way we craft public policy. We know that 70% of transgender women in prison are in there for sexual offences, right, against biological women, and that matters. You're saying this person is just a statistic, but actually they paint a broader picture. This person is clearly a biological man who has committed a heinous crime, and in the name of women. That should offend you, because it's fundamentally
It should offend you that this person is being labelled a woman. It should offend you that in doing so, they are allowed into women's prisons. That has happened, to go and continue to commit more crimes against women. But of course, the ideology has to come first. The ideology has to come before the safety of other females. The ideology has to come before truth and fact. It's very, very disturbing. And she's rolling her eyes, looking into space, not wanting to face the reality, not wanting to face facts. So as Esther said there, this person has been accused of horrific crimes, is clearly male, but gets to be classed as a woman, but gets to be protected from misgendering in the press, potentially in the courts, I'm assuming. They're still worried about misgendering when it comes to courts, when it comes to writing articles, giving people information. They're still worried about using the correct pronouns. It's very, very disturbing how far society has bowed to this cultish ideology. Our courts have bowed to it. Our legislators have bowed to it. We're talking about legislation that affects women, but we can't even define what a woman is. Or we refuse to define what a woman is, in case we offend somebody, in case we offend a male who wants to be let into the club.
What gets me is that, Ava, you're all for women's rights, right to the point that something like this happens and you don't seem to care.
But it's nothing to
You don't care about trans women dominating females in sport.
It's nothing to do with women's rights.
You don't care about any of these issues.
Because the point is that this woman has said that she is a woman, and that doesn't have any bearing on the crime that she committed. Okay, it's sort of
has a bearing on the statistics.
It's sort of like, okay, so Shamima Begum, for example, okay, when she went off and she committed acts of terror, we decided that she wasn't going to be British anymore, and a lot of people were very upset about that because she said you can't change someone's citizenship, you can't change someone's nationality. That's something that is
a lot easier than gender.
And then this is how I would say this is the same situation. Just because this person has done a heinous crime doesn't mean they're no longer.
All right, let me bring in.
She's talking about somebody who was linked to terrorists, who sympathised with terrorists, who wanted to harm British people, having their citizenship revoked. She's talking about that and comparing it to somebody who was born a man, who remains a man, who is male. She literally just said that doesn't mean that this person isn't a woman. Like, there is something seriously wrong with people who have this thought process. I've never seen anything like it. There is something seriously wrong with the way they think, with the way they apply logic. Obviously, there's no logic there. She just said that doesn't mean that she's not a woman. What? The thing that makes this person not a woman is the fact that this person is male. This is biology. This isn't even up for debate.
Well, they were never a woman to begin
hang on.
with.
Let me bring in Tyrus.
Thank you. Esther just said they were never a woman to begin with. Exactly. But for some reason, Ava, the feminist, who claims to advocate for women's rights, believes that when a male murderer says they're a woman, we should respect that. To the point where we class them down as a woman on our statistics. To the point where we allow them into our women's prisons. We should respect that. When somebody tries to insult me and says, well, you know, when did you transition? Or something like that, because they don't like my criticism of males in women's sports, that doesn't mean that I'm not a woman. That would make sense to issue that statement. But to talk about a man, a biological male who was born male and remains male, no matter what he does to his body, or no matter what he says, to say that doesn't mean that she's not a woman, when we're referring to this person, this individual, this horrific male murderer, is absolute insanity. And people who think like this, they're the ones who are writing our legislation that affects women, children, everybody. People who think like this are writing legislation that has real-world consequences. It's very disturbing. People who think like this are calling themselves feminists, are claiming to advocate for women's rights.
I mean, Tyrus, this plays into this whole issue of transgender.
It's the grouping. It's transgender, black, alien from Mars. Doesn't matter. Murderer. Serial murderer.
So, when you first hear Tyrus speak, it sounds like he's agreeing with Ava. Obviously, the crime is the most important issue here. Taking away someone's life, taking away the life of an innocent animal too. That's what Tyrus is talking about here. But even when he says all of this, he's still referring to the person as he. He's not saying, but this person says they're a woman, so they're a woman. But Ava is thinking that he's agreeing with her at first. He's like, ooh. Because they did have a heated exchange prior to this segment. They had a very heated exchange, and he was just like, "You're going to accuse libs of TikTok of being a racist? I'm out of here." That just happened before this segment. So yeah, don't get it twisted when you're listening to this.
Whatever accoutrement or whatever nickname or pronoun this individual had is out the window once he took the life of the victim. The victim's nicknames, the victim's name, the victim's culture should all we be talking about. Instead, because whether they're transgendered or not, and like I said, it's that grouping. It's so bad here in America because with grouping, you can get away with all kinds of stuff and blanket stuff and then take away from the actual issue. Is this individual does not represent trans people. He does not represent the gay community.
I take issue with that
he
because
represents
it matters.
himself. He chose, and whatever he wanted. I listened to you talk for what felt like a year. Give me my 30 seconds and you guys can have the segment.
It's not even an issue about whether he represents trans people. He's claiming to represent women. This crime has been attributed towards women.
This individual is the only thing we should be focused on. We shouldn't know his name. We shouldn't know what he looks like. He should get no press. He can't be made into a martyr. And two, he shouldn't be bringing down the group that he claimed because he doesn't represent the trans community. No one in the trans community wants to walk around killing people.
But I've noticed, Tyrus,
in my community, if I decide to kill Pierce for bringing me into this fight today, I'm not representing black community. I'm represented.
Hold on.
Pissed
No,
off
I understand
Tyrus
that, but
went after Pierce.
But interestingly,
I just have me black. But I love you, and
thank
I
you.
won't.
Well, don't kill me
because
you actually could kill me with your bare hands. I've actually been close enough.
But
to
I'm just
that.
saying.
No,
I'm just saying. If I right now lost my mind and did something, I'm not doing it on behalf of Black America.
No, I understand that, but you would go
really
down.
cool tattoos.
No, but
I'm
okay,
doing it because Tyrus did it.
Let me respond though.
That's the position. Leave the other stuff out and let's have a real conversation about the individual.
No, I get that, but okay,
he doesn't represent anybody.
Let me respond to that. So here's where I think there's a slight flaw in that argument, which is you say, okay, if you commit a murder, it's not about your skin color, whatever, but it would go down in statistics that a black man had committed a murder, right? So say, for example...
Yes, it should be the statistics. Statistics are not open to feelings. Feelings are pretty lies we tell ourselves to feel better about.
That's the issue, though. Apparently, they are now. Records are open to feelings. If someone feels like a woman, they are attributed a record in women's sports. This is what we're seeing. And now, even crimes. If they feel like a woman, that crime is being attributed to women. Only the bad things get attributed to women, but the good things get taken away. Like records, titles, championships. Interesting how that works.
Yeah, okay, but Tyrus,
the facts of the statistics is a man killed it.
But this
so
is the whole point.
Women wouldn't be...
Yeah, but
I agree with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, but see,
I'm with you. He should be...
You've called this person repeatedly.
If he's sitting down and he still has a penis, Morgan, he needs to go down as a man. He's a biological man. In the stats, it's off biology.
But that is J.K. Rowling's. That's J.K. Rowling's argument.
No, she doesn't have an argument. She's making a factual statement. And she's getting yelled at for it. It's not an argument. She's not breaking the mold here. She didn't drop something. This isn't Harry Potter, some new magic spell she dropped on us. We all know this. We're all adults in the room. We know what a man is and knows what look like. We know what a woman is and looks like. It's just these stupid narratives and trying to fall into whatever side you want to fall.
But should it go down, Tyrus? The key point though is should it go down as a crime statistic that a woman committed this heinous crime?
No.
Or a man?
The statistic should say his height, weight, gender, and the time of murder. That's it. Who cares about who he was as a person? He's lost that right once he took someone else's life. All we care about is making sure that justice is served and he gets put away for whatever they do, whatever you guys do over there. I don't think you guys do the death sentence anymore, so whatever's over there. But in the stats, no name, just the facts, Jack. And he was born, they checked M for male on his birth certificate. That's what you are. His feelings is irrelevant.
Exactly. There you go. That's common sense. That's the realistic application of facts. But people like Ava are perfectly happy for people to be lied to and told that this person is a woman and committed this horrific crime. The only thing that should matter are the facts, that this person is male, this person is of a certain age, whatever age they are, and this person committed this crime or is being accused of committing this crime. That's all that should matter. But now we're so worried about misgendering the person. We're so worried about the person's feelings that we're not going to be accurate when it comes to statistics.
Okay.
In my opinion.
All right. It's an interesting debate. And I actually agree with that. I agree with J.K. Rowling. If I was a woman, I'm not, obviously. I'm not declaring myself as a woman today. Maybe tomorrow I will feel like one. And according to Ava Santina, I can just feel like one and be one. I think that is... Well, it is what you said, actually.
Not what I've said.
You said this person decides they're a woman, that's it.
I just think it's correct to say that once you have taken someone else's life, you lose all right to your personhood, and you shouldn't be made a martyr. And I think by having this conversation, having this debate, and J.K. Rowling blowing it up the way that she did, I think that we've actually been focusing on it and hemmed in on it, and you have made a martyr out of this person now.
Not at all.
What? Now she's changing her story because she knows how stupid what she was saying sounds. Now she's trying to change her story. You lose all right to your humanity, yet you didn't even want him to lose the right to being classed as a woman. You didn't want him to lose the right to she, her pronouns. You just said, if he says he's a woman, he's a woman. That doesn't mean he's not a woman. Or sorry, she. That doesn't mean she's not a woman. If she says she's a woman, she's a woman. She just said all of that. And now she's trying to backtrack from the fact that you didn't even want to dishonor this person by using the wrong pronouns. You just argued that. This is what they do. When we shine a light on how ridiculous their statements are, they now backtrack. J.K. Rowling, she was attacked for simply saying that this isn't our crime. This is a man who did this. She got attacked for that. And instead of standing by J.K. Rowling as a woman, you stood by the murderer. That's what you did. You stood by the murderer and said, well, if he says he's a woman, he's a woman. Or she. You basically co-signed what happened to J.K. Rowling getting attacked, getting abuse online for simply stating biological fact. It's amazing how they love to distance themselves from their own foolishness when it backfires. That's why people have such an issue with libs of TikTok, because all she does is shine a light on their own insanity. That's the basis of her content initially, is literally just to repost what these people say.
No, the martyrdom was done when they said that
because imagine if you're the sort of person that loves the limelight, loves being in the spotlight. This is exactly what you wanted. They're probably in prison over.
I think most people taking issue with
this person is in a male prison, actually, as it turned out.
I just said it in prison.
So it goes down as a woman murderer who's now languishing in a male prison, which to me exposes the absurdity of the whole thing.
Okay.
Anyway,
absolutely ridiculous. So the fact is, they do know this person is male. They don't want to be open to any lawsuits because there's lawsuits going on at the moment because they let freaking rapists into women's prisons. They let them into women's prisons because they identified as women. So there are lawsuits going on at the moment. So they're not going to make that mistake again. So make sure they put him in a male prison. But when it comes to statistics, we still need to honor his pronouns. So this is where we're at now. I'm very concerned what's going to happen years from now when we look back at this time. What is the information that people are going to have access to? Is it going to be accurate? If the likes of Ava have her way, no. And that's very disturbing. So write everything down, keep records, keep a diary, so that in years to come, people have some accurate information. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.